Everybody, welcome back to Bayou Time. Harry McCullough here. We're checking in with state legislator and one of their top legislators, Joe Orgeron, District 54. Thanks for being here, man. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Harry. Thank you very much.
You're already feeling in like you're one of the top guys, huh?
No, not yet, but
No, you're one of the top guys around here for sure.
Thank you.
Representing our district very well. Let's talk about what's going on right now. I guess elections are coming up. That's always on everybody's mind. So
Correct.
Not so much candidates, but more amendments right now, right?
correct. Of course, you got some local races as well, some appeals court judges and judgeships as well in areas of my district. But the amendments are the ones that I wanted to speak about, and not on any particular amendment, about just where to get the best information. The PAR, which is the Public Affairs Research, has a great website. Always I highly value their opinion and the way that they put out the information on each one of the amendments. We're going to have amendments both in the November election, November 8th, and also the December, I believe it's December 10th runoff as well. So there's like, I want to say there's 6 or 8 in the first one, and maybe even more, and at least 4 in the second election.
So maybe 10 or 12 amendments to vote on.
Correct.
Why is this? Why so many?
In a nutshell, because back in the past, my opinion is back in the past in 1974, whenever we rewrote the Constitution, the legislators didn't have much trust in the politicians that were there, and they wrote a Constitution that was very restrictive. So now whenever times are changing and we need to be nimble and adaptive with taxes and every aspect of society, that people come to me and say, we need a law to change this, then you go look and Constitution's restrictive now. So I got to pass 2 laws. I got to pass one law that'll change 2 bills, one that changes the law and one that puts that law on the ballot for the people to vote on, because the Constitution's so restrictive. Eventually, hopefully, we'll have a constitutional rewrite that'll, I'm not saying loosen the restrictions, but basically give a little bit more flexibility to legislators to be able to be more nimble and adaptive. Sure. That's the way to describe it.
Right. We're in a more nimble-minded society, right? You got to be able to move and react. Although that's the beauty of it. Maybe if it takes a little longer, that maybe you'll be a little more thought out. But I think what they're doing is saying, it's not my fault. You guys voted on it.
That's right. That's right. And the good thing about looking up the PAR's website for your information on how to vote on the amendments is what they do real well is they'll put the actual text as you'll see it on the ballot. They then got what this means in everyday language. And then the best part is the 2 next sections for each amendment, which is you'll probably be in favor for this if you believe that. And then they give you kind of an everyday example, and you'll be against this amendment if you believe that.
I do. Sometimes I walk in the booth, and if I'm not prepared, I read it and I'm going, I'm not exactly sure what I'm reading, what I'm voting for. Am I voting for it, or am I voting not for it?
Exactly. The way the wording is done is always tricky. So I'll always ask people, anybody who had a veteran who possibly fought, in the military and potentially a family member who's died, usually it's those people who take voting very serious. Sure. To get out there and vote, and it's always good to be educated on what you're going to vote for.
I know you can't run down all 12 of them. You got any cliff notes of some of the major ones we'll be looking for?
On the amendments?
Yeah, the amendments.
I know that there's a couple that talk about, right now there are certain funds, there's probably like 4 or 5 funds that the state invests for on behalf of the public, and they're only able to currently invest like 35% into the stock market, and it's to raise the 35 to 65%. That was one that I was reading. I was just more interested in what were all the different funds that were in there, more than anything else. But it's like 5 different funds. Yeah. Nothing earth-shattering, but just basically giving the treasurer and the state more leeway on how to invest.
I got you.
The state.
Yeah, timely considering what
There's other ones
the market was
about
doing today.
There's other ones about property taxes and homestead exemptions for disabled veterans that had a lot of support through the legislature as well.
Hey, redistricting. Last time you were here, you were in the committee for redistricting. You ended up passing one, and then the judge threw it out, and then you guys overread it. And now you kind of on a holding pattern with that. When did they figure that out before elections?
Well, what actually happened was the same thing that happened in many other states where the redistricting process was challenged, and that was the judge said, whatever your legislature passed, we understand there's challenges to it, but whatever they passed for the sake of the July qualifying for this November 8th election for Congress, we're going to go with those past maps. And that's basically what we did. That's the closest apportionment that we were able to get. And and of course that was challenged, and the judge basically put that on hold for now in Louisiana. There are other states that have challenges that have gone all the way up to the Supreme Court. I think Alabama is the one of most interest. And currently we're at a position where I believe the Louisiana judges in charge of this lawsuit are basically saying, we'll take a pause, we'll see how the Supreme Court rules on Alabama, and then we'll basically have a better understanding of what's to be expected going forward, or how to hash out the Louisiana situation.
Yeah, real interesting, because I mean, look, you got every 2 years you got somebody running for
Congress.
representative for Congress, so they got to know before, hey, if I'm Garrett Graves and I'm no longer in the same district I was in, I need to know. So.
And there's also the state senate and the state rep. My district, which, at least around our area of Terrebonne and Lafourche, there really wasn't no significant changes. But depending on how this comes out, will make a difference on where we end up at.
A year after Ida, a year and 2 weeks now. So, we were just talking, a lot of recovery's been done, a lot of work to be done. Continue to be done for sure.
Actually, we got on the way down here, I got an email from Senator Cassidy's office that some additional federal monies have been allotted specifically for Ida debris cleanup.
Oh, good.
That I guess the calculations on how much was spent, and I believe there's a million, at least of the amount that was allotted to our area, $1 million was allotted to Grand Isle to assist with the additional, I guess, the sand debris cleanup and other things.
Well, you have a place down in Grand Isle. Have they been able to get the drainage fixed and get?
They're working on it, but as sand is, anytime you dig it out, actually the next rain kind of puts them back. And a lot of the contracts are for digging the ditches and not so much for blowing out the culverts, the interconnects and stuff like that. So it'll be I'm going to say a process. It's going to be a repetitive process where we clean out the ditches, and then storms come through or big heavy rains come through and move the block sand out the way. But they're working on it. They're trying to get it. It's getting better.
Yeah,
it is getting better.
It is. But it's still a long way to go. And we had a year cut off, and I think they're going to try and extend that for another 6 months. Let's talk about insurance. And you're talking about Louisiana Citizens, our last resort insurance. And a lot of companies, at one time, a lot of people wanted to be in the insurance business in Louisiana. That doesn't seem to be. No. It seemed like more people are getting out now.
Right after the storm, of course, we had 2 that immediately fell and went insolvent, and the state stepped in and said, we have a fund to help up to a cap make all the claims whole. And as that was happening, there were actually several companies that had never underwritten in Louisiana ever before that were basically petitioning Jim Donnellan and the Insurance Commission that, hey, after you pay off these people's problems, we'll be happy to take their premiums and insure them. And of course, at the time, the Department of Insurance was saying we need to make sure that these companies that are trying to come into the market are not fly by night, that they're solvent and stuff like that. And they were putting certain limits on how much I'm going to say money in the bank they had to have. And that went for the first 2 that fell, the first 2 companies that backed out, and other ones came in, and then 2 more fell. and the number of players to come into the market were less. And then subsequently, since then, I think 3 or 4 more went insolvent. Now there's no longer companies that, in other words, we've used up all the companies who had interest to come into the market. So just this week, we got a letter from, we being the legislators, from Jim Donnellan explaining the process, and that Louisiana Citizens is, well, first of all, those that have come into the market, they've actually even further increased the amount of capital that they need to have to be able to write policies in Louisiana. So maybe the bar's been raised just a little bit higher than expected, but they need to be solvent. And that Louisiana Citizens, efforts are being made to assure that in the short term, Louisiana Citizens as a vendor of last resort would be able to cover those people. Not in other words, that's the Band-Aid.
Sure.
So until the market kind of settles out.
So, yeah, they have certain regulations before they can get in here, right? I'm sure you'd love to come in here and not have the regulation, right? You take premiums and then file bankruptcy before you take off. But so that's part of the thing. So is it people don't want to come here, or Louisiana's made it so high that nobody thinks it's attractive anymore?
It's a combination of them, that Louisiana's like, look, we're not going to let any fly-by-night companies come in here and give people false hope. You need to be able to show that you could cover the losses.
Sure.
And I think it probably is just my speculation on my part, but I would think that the companies need to revamp and see what their risks are in the Louisiana market. So they're a little standoffish.
The insurance commissioner controls what people can charge, though, right? And when they want to do a rate increase and all that kind of stuff too. So the people that are coming in here, like State Farm, big ones that are in here, are they still making money, right?
They are. But you know, some of the things they're doing. I'm getting word that they're doing things like mandating that National Flood Insurance Program, that the National Flood Program is also being covered.
Like if you have a mortgage. But
well,
insurance, but they on the other side.
If you have a mortgage, generally the bank will not hold your mortgage unless you have all the possible insurances: homeowners, wind and hail, and flood.
But now the insurance companies are doing the same thing.
Now even people who have paid off their mortgage that are saying, look, all I want to do is have wind and hail to cover me, or something to that effect. The companies are saying, look, we'll do the homeowners even if you don't have flood, but if you want wind and hail, you have to also get flood insurance. And they're like asking us, is that lawful? Can they force us to get flood insurance? We're in an area that doesn't flood. Well, you know,
if you're behind levees, right?
Inside the levees, like in the 10th Ward, Lower Lafourche and all. So those constituents are asking me, and I've ran the traps on it, and the answer is currently there's no law that prohibits companies from having their own private corporation policy to mandate that you have it. So that may change in the future.
Right. And then that throws in the risk 2.0, all the new FEMA maps, which is all a whole new thing.
Correct. Right? And still being battled right now.
Right.
What's good is that the company G&O Inc., the Commerce, the Chamber of Commerce of New Orleans, actually has a task force that's really pushing on FEMA to increase the transparency of how these numbers are being calculated for risk rating 2.0, to make it more fair and equitable for people of South Louisiana.
Clean up at Elmer's Island. We were talking with Nichols, and Nichols is sending a bunch of volunteers down there. They probably have a couple hundred people that are going to Elmer's Island this Saturday for it's an International Day beach cleanup day.
It is.
They say you can't believe how much stuff comes up on a beach, and tons of stuff. So you're going to be part of that as well.
I will. I actually participated in it. I want to say last year, but it wasn't last year.
Right.
We were a little busy with something else last year.
A lot of stuff.
Whatever the last Elmer's Island cleanup was, I was there. And just as an average participant picking up on the beach, and it was quite fun, quite fulfilling to do it. And this time I'm kind of assisting with my my role at Restore a Retreat, kind of helping organize and get the word out and get down there. So I'll be down there. This
Yeah, good.
Saturday.
It's this Saturday from 9 to 1. So I think, they wanted people to sign up to do it, but I think if volunteers show up with their own food and stuff,
Right.
they'll
Well,
be
the,
good to
the
go.
sign up is online. There's a
Yeah.
link, and basically you just give your information and a consent, and you're in.
Yeah, it can always help out. And y'all do a great job in Grand Isle picking up all of that, just on the beach on the regular
Absolutely.
point. But yeah, I mean, all you got to do is drive anywhere. We've been picking up so long, all along the ditches everywhere. It's, it's understandable. There's a lot of trash we can pick up in a lot of places. So always good there, and always part of it's amazing how much stuff are in our ocean waters. So when they come up, tax reform and Ways and Means Committee that you're part of, we've talked about this a bunch. There's always something going on with tax reform, and again, y'all doing it again.
Yeah.
But sometimes you almost have to take it little bites at a time. I know we've had going all the way back to Edwin Edwards and Buddy Romer. It seems like we've been trying to change things. Nobody wants to change. It all sounds good,
Right.
but
All the changes that Louisiana have done have all been pretty much, small piecemeal changes, and basically we're at the point where one of the things that was brought up in the committee meeting is Louisiana as a state had gained congressional districts from its inception all the way up to about 1912. And from 1912, we had 8 congressional districts. 8 congressmen were sent to D.C. And that pretty much stayed all the way through 1990. And in 1990 census, we lost 1. We went from 8 to 7. And then we skipped. They generally don't pull back. They don't remove a congressional district 2 censuses in a row, so they give you a gap. So in 2000 census, we didn't lose anybody, but in 2010, post Katrina, I guess, we lost the 7th down to 6 where we are now. Technically, we're kind of on tap to lose another one, but in the 2020 census, they stuck by the rule and didn't take one away from us. But if we don't do something to change in the next census in 2030, we're likely to lose yet another one. And at the same time, 2 other states nearby, one called Texas and one called Florida, are both gaining congressional seats at our not at our loss, but they're gaining their own. And so in today's meeting, it was like,
why don't we do it like Texas?
What are they doing? And it's like, well, they don't have a state income tax, number one. Both Texas,
Neither one.
Right. Higher property taxes, a not as lenient homestead exemption. There's a whole lot of things. Here in Louisiana, we have what we call a $4 billion annual local government welfare, where we do taxation, send it to Baton Rouge, and then we beg to get the money back for the local governments, or send your representative to go bring home the bacon. And I think we're all at a point in the legislature where we realize it would probably be best and most efficient if it doesn't make the trip to Baton Rouge and back, and it just stays locally. So things which people don't like to hear about the
homestead exemption.
Either changing it in a way.
Oh, I got you.
Not a complete removal, but possibly changing it or removing it. But at the same time, removing income tax, the state income tax completely.
Right. It's regressive, right?
Yeah, doing away with it. And so there's a whole lot of pieces of the puzzle that need to be examined and looked at a bigger picture. And that's what today's meeting was about, to start a task force, a subcommittee of Ways and Means to exactly examine the big picture. So we've already done all the tweaking and the squirting of oil on the various gears in the gearbox. Now we're talking about, what if we were to pull it out and rebuild it, rebuild Louisiana?
Yeah, I mean, the 1800s, New Orleans was one of the bigger countries in the world, or certainly in the United States. Even in the 70s, we're the same size as Dallas, pretty much. New Orleans was. And now you look at it, we've gone backwards. So maybe you could say, hey, why don't we be Texas East, right? And have the same thing and maybe the same advantages. And I guess that's what you're probably talking about.
Louisiana's Louisiana. We don't have to be Texas East. We are the energy corridor. And we power the nation. So continuing to...
but we got so many advantages. We do have natural resources. We have a big river. We have South. We have the Sun Belt. We ought to have a lot more advantage. We shouldn't be losing people.
Exactly. We should be gaining people.
Right.
And, even though the... Inflation Reduction Act, it's admittedly not going to reduce inflation. at least it had a couple of hooks in there that basically reinstate that lease sale that happened last year.
Right.
That was, the federal government just basically vacated.
Right.
Well, they got to reinstate that by the 16th of this month. Got to put that back on the books, and they must reinstate lease sales going forward, or oil and gas lease sales in the Gulf of Mexico as part of that act.
Yeah,
So
hey, look.
that hopefully we'll be able to have a pulse that we'll be able to follow and move our energy infrastructure
It's so
forward.
silly. At a certain time when we got a war going on in Ukraine, it's going to be a cold winter in Europe
For some.
and so we should be involved, helping out.
Absolutely.
Joe Orgeron, thank you so much, man. We
Thank
always
you,
appreciate
Harry.
your time.
Appreciate it.
All right, we'll be right back with more Bite Time after this.